If you've ever read or watched the news in the last few months, you would know what I mean when I talk about the violence that can come from protesting. Now, when you think of protests, you may think of the ones you've read in history books, such as the Civil Rights Movement. The ones I'm going to be talking about today differ very much from that. Today, I'm going to be informing you about the positive and negative effects that protesting can bring. And I believe I'm very well qualified to talk to you about this today because I've done quite a bit of extensive research on this. Although there are very many different opinions on protesting, my first point today will be why protesting is a good thing and why people should normally do it, why it should be considered normal. So, according to the Princeton Press in 2020, an article they wrote, they said that protesting can help spread awareness for things such as bringing equality to the world for everybody and everyone, and maybe even like healthcare and stuff. But protests can also help legal changes be made, such as laws, and that's what we want. Laws help make things better. My second point today will be why protests should be peaceful and why they shouldn't be harmful or non-peaceful in a sense. And according to an article the Northeastern News wrote in 2020, peaceful protests can be way more effective than non-peaceful. They help you get your point across and they show what you want. Because, you're being peaceful about it. You're not rioting and destroying things to get your way. Like I mentioned before, many people have very strong opinions on protesting. If you were going to go on the street and ask somebody, hey, what's your opinion on protesting? Most likely they're going to give you a negative opinion, because that's how the world is today. The third point I'm going to be talking about today is why the negative effects that protesting can bring to the world. And according to the WTTW News, in an article they wrote in 2020, non-peaceful protests can bring destruction, such as destroying buildings and streets. And if you ever watched the news about the Black Lives Matter protest, you would know what I mean by that. Because many buildings were destroyed, like put on fire, in a sense. But also, non-peaceful protests can cause deadly injuries, such as death and maybe even losing a limb. Who knows? My fourth and final point I will be sharing with you today is why protests can be ignored, even if they are peaceful or maybe even non-peaceful. And this is because lawmakers can make laws against protesters. And that means that they'll make laws that just make protests stop, where it can be illegal, and police officers are allowed to take the necessary precautions. And according to the breaking news written about an article they wrote in 2020, they say voting can do way more than protesting can do, which kind of makes sense, but it also doesn't, because you can't really vote on having equal rights because, you don't vote on that kind of stuff. By informing you about protests and how they can either be peaceful and non-peaceful, and why if you go about them right, you may just get what you want, but if you don't, we all know lawmakers will just ignore you. And I hope by telling you all this information now that you'll be able to make your own opinion on whether the positive and negative effects of protesting are good or bad. And with this, I hope you make the best decision and help maybe even go protest us a bit for something you believe should be done in the world.